Good evening. You are attending the Board of Education regular meeting. We are on Zoom this evening and we'll be live streaming this public meeting on the district's YouTube channel as well. And yes, so hold on. Okay, so we are live. You have reached the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education regular meeting. So thank you for being here this evening. I'm Bob Peschel. I am the president of the school board. We are happy that you are engaging with us at whatever source that you are doing it with this evening. So first, we have a public hearing tonight. So let's get into business with that. Are we in compliance with open meeting law notification?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you. Please take the roll.
Carlin?
Here.
Herzog?
Here.
Carnes?
Here.
Peschel?
Here.
Szilagyi?
Here.
Right?
Here.
Wyman, I do believe she's absent tonight. We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. If Dr. Davis could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. All right, next we will have a public hearing on the proposed budget for 2021, section 6590, parent 4, Wisconsin State Statute. I'd like to call this public hearing to order. Do we take a roll for that or not? No, okay. So I'd like to just read published notice of the budget. And so tonight we have a public budget hearing tonight. A budget hearing will be held tonight, Wednesday, September 8th, 2021 at 6 p.m. in the virtual boardroom of the Oshkosh Area School Board of Education Administrative Offices. Located at 215 South Eagle Street, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. A detailed copy of the budget will be available on Friday, September 17th, 2021 at the administration office or by contacting Mr. Drew Nehans at 920-424-0122. A summary of this budget is printed on the sheet that I'm reading from you, and you can also receive that from Mr. Drew Nehans as well. So next up, I would like to invite Dr. Brian Davis to lead us in a presentation of the budget, and whoever he chooses to make that presentation as well.
Yes, thank you, President Peschel. I will throw it over to Mr. Drew Nehans to walk us through the presentation of our budget hearing tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Let me pull up my screen. Okay, can everyone see the budget presentation? Okay, so
yes.
We are going to be discussing the 2021-22 budget and kind of seeing how the 2021 budget ended up as well in relation. So going over some of our goals and kind of how we build the budget. What we do as we are trying to do this is we try to align this to our strategic plan and making those initiatives of the district what we are actually funding within our budgets. So this allows the district to move forward with improvements and enhancements to our educational programs. The budget also serves as a way to try to ensure that we're providing competitive compensation package to attract and retain our staff. We also use the budget here to fund the population that we have, where we have an increasingly diverse student population. And a lot of times that also comes with added costs as well. So we use our budget to make sure that we are serving those needs. And we've talked a lot in the district the last several years with our equity drive. And the budget is kind of used to help us fund the equity initiatives that we have in place right now. Oops. So some of the other budget goals that we have for this is we're looking to implement strategies and process improvements, and trying to do that to help us reallocate budget funds into areas where we may have a higher priority for them. And I'll show you some of the tools and some of the aspects as we move through this that we're looking at and analyzing internally to help us decide where the best use of our budget money is. Another thing we're doing within our budget goals is trying to continue to investigate and analyze our building budgets and what those allocations are to try to maximize our instructional dollars. And then we also kind of look at the long range goals and how we are funding those goals within our forecasting model. So let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit. If that makes it a little easier to read. Some of these numbers get a little small, I realize. So what we're looking at here is our operational budget. And you can see that if we start from the left on the columns, you're looking at actual numbers from fiscal years 2018, 2019, and 2020. We have unaudited from fiscal year 2021, which is the year that just ended. That audit is, for the most part, for our purposes, it's done, but it doesn't become official and get to move into the audited until December, when the actual audit report gets approved by BPI. So until that time, we technically have to call these unaudited numbers, but they have been looked at and gone over through the auditor at this point. And then the blue column, at least on the header, is the budgeted numbers for this year. So our revenues, we're looking at this year for operational, which is again our Fund 10 and Fund 27 funds. Those are our operational funds. We're looking at just over $160 million in revenue. You can see there's about a $7 million difference, about 4.5% increase from last year. A large portion of that is from the second ESSER funds. We got just under $6 million of ESSER funds that's included in this that wouldn't have been included in our last year. So that represents the bulk of what the increase in our revenue is. So then our expenditures are coming in just a little shy of 160 million. So you can see we've got a little bit less than a $250,000 surplus we're showing on the books right now for our operations. Again, the increase in the expenses largely is with the ESSER funds as part of that. So you can see, if we're looking at last year's numbers, we are ending the year with just under a $3.5 million surplus. Again, quite a bit of that is just a change in philosophy. We had originally budgeted to put a little bit more than $1.2 million into our Fund 46 for capital improvements for long term. We decided not to make that transfer into Fund 46. We are trying to continue to build our fund balance up, knowing that we have to take at least one more debt issue out from the referendum that was passed last November. So we are trying to build that fund balance up so our credit rating can at least maintain, if not go back up a little bit. As you take out more debt, you need a higher fund balance than typically than what we've carried in the past. So we're getting close to that dollar amount that we probably need to maintain the credit rating or possibly bump it back up. So that was part of the thought process behind not going into Fund 46. One of the advantages that has done to us or for us is when we do look at short-term borrowing here, and I believe that's later on in the regular meeting, we've actually drastically reduced what we short-term borrow, partly because of our fund balance now. So where in last year and the year prior, we were borrowing just under $10 million. This year, we're not expecting to borrow more than 8 million on a short-term basis for cash flow. So it does have a side effect that we don't have to short-term borrow as much. So then you can see our expected fund balance is going to be, we're in that $23 million range, which is what the credit ratings companies were telling us. They ideally would like to see us in the $25 million range. But we may have made enough of a bump this last year that we get enough credit that maybe that helps us out when we do go to borrow again. So as we get into the budget, we kind of want to break down and kind of go through again where we're coming up with how we're funding this. So going back to our strategic plan, it's a lot about student first. It's a lot about instructional needs. So I kind of just want to talk through the board on how we build the instructional budget and how we're actually doing with funding the instructional part of the house here. So when you look at our overall expenses for operating budgets, we spend just under 53% of our budget on instruction directly. And then you can see we spend a little under 30% on support services. And we're going to see here coming up what that does. So this is how we've tracked over the last 4 or 5 years. Our instruction is doing pretty good. We're seeing some modest increases year to year, which is good. We've put a significant amount of money into support services. We increased that just about 7% in 2019. We've added quite a bit to non-program transactions as well, which is largely going to be some of the debt services and the referendum capital projects that we've done. But how do we compare then to the state? So the state average for instruction is 48%. So we're over 4.5% more than what the state average is funding specifically on instruction. So I think when we look at how we're doing, as you look at our strategic plan and trying to put students first and trying to put instruction first, I think we're reflecting that in how we've budgeted and how we've maintained how we do our expenses. So then conversely, you're going to see that our other percentages are either in line or not quite. The support services is where other people spend a little bit extra that we spend on instruction. So then when we compare to the state on a little bit more of the object level instead of the function level, we compare pretty well with the state on salaries. When you look at our salaries, the state average is just over 46%, and we're at 45 and just about 45.5. So we're pretty close to the state average on salaries as a collective. But you can really see the difference when you look at our employee benefits. We're almost in between 22.5 and 23% of our expenditures are on benefits, where the average is a little bit less than 20%. So you can, when we combine those, I think we're doing pretty well in those areas as well. This is just another graph of the same only spread out over the last several years. You can see we've been staying pretty consistent in what our levels are in our salaries and our benefits part. So then when you compare us to more, not just the state average, but more districts that are comparable to us demographics wise. So this would be the comparison group that kind of lines up to us more so in demographics as peers. So within this 11 district group, we're sitting pretty close to the middle, a little bit high middle on what we fund for instruction. So again, we're sitting pretty well as far as how we compare with our peers and with the state in where we're allocating our resources. So this graphic is just breaking down what we spend per student in the operations. So we're a little bit above the average for this peer group, but we're still sitting pretty well collectively. We're not by any means out of a norm area. So one of our other main goals within the strategic plan is revolves around staffing and making sure that we're able to attract and retain high quality staff and give them their needs. So in these are just, again, some of the resources we use at a high level, and we drill down more into this and on the back end throughout the year internally. But this is just looking at our peer group now, and this shows just salaries across the board. This is what we would spend on salaries. So we're smack dab in the middle of the peer group for salaries, and the amount you're seeing on the right is the per student amount. And again, this is all of our staff. This isn't broken down into any of our work categories. So then when you look at just the benefits, we are leading the group in benefit spend per student. So then when you combine the two, which is typically how people would look at this, combining them and looking at what a complete compensation package would be, we're right there. We're just a little bit above the average, but we're right in a good spot. We're sitting second, but there's probably 4 or 5 of us that are so close that you're all kind of together. So compensation wise on staffing, again, I think we're doing pretty well. These are some of the resources we're also looking at to try to see, okay, where can we start making some changes within maybe our benefit package that doesn't diminish the benefit package, but maybe is a little more cost effective, where we can start shifting some of those resources into the salary portion of the compensation to start trying to equalize it out a little bit more. We don't necessarily want to just sit at the very high end and the top end of our benefit package and start dropping where we are on the salary portion of things either. So these are some of the things we've been looking at and kind of going over and analyzing. So our support staff and the support needed for that. So again, this was going back, and I think we saw this slide a little bit earlier on what we're doing with our support services and how we've been increasing that the last couple of years. What I really wanted to point out on our support services is this slide. We've got pupil services are just about 17% of our spend for the support services, and instructional support staff is another 16%. So even though this whole category is technically not instruction, when we look at it from this lens, 32% of what we spend here really goes back to student-based, whether it's instruction or student service resources with our health staff, our guidance counselor staff, all the support staff we have in place for our students. So we still are spending quite a bit more out of this area as well, directly related to the students. And then this shows you for the last 5 years what areas of the function level have increased the most, and pupil services is right up at the top. There's other support services is also in here, as well as supervision and coordination. So we've got 3 of our top 10 functions that we've been looking at over the last 5 years are again student related, that are increasing the most. So then let's look at our revenues coming in. So you can see we've been climbing up, which would be pretty normal. Again, we're going to have a little bit of a skew here, and a little bit last year and in the fiscal year this year in 22, and we will again next year. And then we're going to anticipate a drop in revenues as the ESSER money all goes away. So we've been planning for that. But you can see how the revenues have gone up. We're up around a little over $160 million right now. So here's how it's broken down. And this is a lot of what we'd like to see, and something a lot of districts would probably like to get, is where you're seeing the yellow bars, the state sources, is what's continuing to go up fairly significantly. And the blue line, what we're getting from the local support, is staying a little bit more flat. That's a good thing. That means the state, we're getting more money and collecting more aid from the state, rather than relying more heavily on local sources for our budget. And you can see the big spike in the federal. Everyone pretty much knows what that is at this point. So, and this just breaks down again a different way of putting it. So our equalization aid is what we get from the state, how that's been going significantly up every year. And then how you can see now our taxes separated out from the local sources specifically, and how that's really truly been hovering in that low 40s to at the highest, the mid 40s range. And then the per pupil and the special ed aid have stayed pretty constant. Those haven't changed a lot over the years. So you can see here our state portion of our revenues is about 50%. It's just over 50% of our revenues come from the state. A little bit over 35% comes locally. So then how does that kind of translate with our expenses? And where do the expenses go? You can see as our revenues have increased, our expenditures also increase, which is fairly typical. So our salaries and benefits make up the largest chunk of what our expenditures are. The transfers, the large bulk of the transfer comes from what we're required to transfer into Fund 27 from Fund 10 to make that whole. So that's the bulk of that transfer, is just making this all complete. So does anyone have any questions on where and how the budget kind of gets built before we go into the actual detail of this year's budget and kind of what the fund numbers are going to be moving forward?
I do. I have a question. Can you see me?
Okay. Yep.
For the greater good, and if anyone is watching at home, I noticed that when we do the comparisons to similar sized districts, that we don't have Neenah or Omro or Winnebago on there. And can you just speak to that a little bit about why we don't compare ourselves to them?
Sure. What the software allows us to do is really pick out key demographics that are really vital to the K-12 system. So what we do is we look at enrollments, overall student enrollment, but then we're breaking that down into percentages of economically disadvantaged percentages, our special education percentages. There's quite a few different categories that we kind of go through to try to build the same, because it's not a fair comparison to even to say Kimberly is like us, and our spending habits should be the same as what theirs are. Their student population is completely different from what ours is, and it just isn't as expensive when you aren't as diverse as what we are. So we're trying to find a similar pattern of diversities within multiple categories to really come up with a little bit better comparison. And size does matter when we're doing with that, because the size of your budget and your student population makes a difference on what you can do and how many resources you are able to get.
Right. And thank you for clarifying that. I raised that question just because we often get compared to some of these school districts, and it's not an apple to apple comparison. So thank you for explaining that.
Correct. Thank you.
Drew, thank you for putting this together. Hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn. I know I raised my hand a while ago, but I could very well be out of turn. I was able to read through the budget and all the information you provided a couple times. Very well put together. I like that most of the budget goes towards instruction. With that being said, largely 70% of our budget's a fixed cost that increases or decreases with salary and benefits. The other part of the equation, though, with 52% of our budget figures going towards instruction, and I don't believe we have the capability to do this now, but if we are going to and are spending more money on instructional type things, is there any way where we can find out or fine tune where our dollars are being most effective as far as literacy and math and whatever scores, so that we can quantify within our budgeting processes that if we put X amount of dollars into literacy or a certain literacy program, it's shown to give us, these types of percentage increases in scores, et cetera. I know that this isn't something we do now, but it would be great if, increases in where money's spent could be quantified with results. That's my only conversation, I guess, or question piece.
Correct. And we do, there is ways to do that. And we have that within our software. We can look at how our student report cards are, or the different aspects of student testing at different levels. Your spend per student, depending on where you're doing that and whether or not you're getting results, and where the kind of the sweet spot for all that is, that is part of it. I didn't go into that for this because that starts getting a little bit more
For sure.
into the weeds a little bit, but we do internally, we are able to have those analysis discussions, and that's what we're doing around staffing as well, of where are we getting the results we want with where we're spending it here at our staffing levels. Is it where we want? Are we getting the results? Where are we able to start manipulating and shifting, whether it's staffing, whether it's budget monies, any of that, to make sure that we're getting the outcomes we want. And that's where the money's going to follow that. So the money is truly going to follow where results are getting had, and really trying to maximize where we're going.
I really appreciate you guys doing that, because, we're providing a service, and we're spending quite amount of money and resources, and it's wonderful to hear that we're trying to allocate those resources to where they can be of the biggest benefit to the district, which, when we produce good results, then it produces good good things for the district. So thank you.
I apologize if I'm missing people. I only see like 3 people on my screen right now, so I can see the rest of my screen, so I don't see if anyone's got hands up.
This is Barb. I have a hand up, but someone else may also, so I'll wait my turn.
Go ahead, Barb.
Oh, thank you. Drew, I just wanted to compliment you and your team for putting this presentation together. As one who considers herself to be a visual learner, I really appreciate having the graphs along with the verbal explanation of what you've presented. I think for me, this is extremely helpful in terms of looking to understand the overall budget. And to the point that Mr. Wright raised, I think that's also a key point, especially as the board is asked to increase staffing in certain areas or to create new positions. I think it's always important to keep in mind what are the outcomes that we're looking for, so that we know that we are investing our dollars to best serve our students. If we truly believe in students first, then we need to be looking at and measuring outcomes relative to student results. And knowing that not all students start at the same place, we really need to look at a growth model, because they don't all start at the same place. And so those who for example, the 4-year-olds who have not been read to in the first 4 years of life to a great extent, and they come to our schools, we know there's a great deal of research to suggest that their vocabularies may be more limited than those children who come from a more verbal and written book environment. So I agree with what Mr. Wright had said. I think we all have to be looking at results in terms of student growth. So thank you, Mr. Nehans and your team, and thank you, Chris Wright, for your comments.
Any other comments from board members? Nope. Seeing none. Oh, Liz, did you have comments? Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify one thing about the benefits and salary. Like Barb said, I loved the graphs and seeing the budget all laid down visually like that. So thank you, Drew. This was a very helpful presentation, and I enjoyed looking over it this past few days. As noted, we are in the middle for salaries, or above average, actually, slightly above average. And then for benefits, it was noted that we are at the top for per student spending. But if I understand it correctly, that if you were to compare us to those same districts, we might be one of the lower districts when it comes to per student spending. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I quite understand.
Yeah, so in the salaries and the benefits, I think it's like around slide, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know the slide number, but the graphs where you showed that we were the top end of average for our salaries compared to the other districts, the other 11 districts that you had on there. And then for benefits, we were the top for per student spending. So you know what part of the presentation I'm referencing now?
Yep.
Okay. When we compare ourselves on the raw dollar amount of per student spending that we do with those districts, we are a lower spender. Is that correct?
Operationally, no. We are towards the middle, high middle.
Okay.
There was early in the presentation we showed, I believe we're just over 15,000. It's like 15,200 per student. For operational spend. That's all inclusive, all of our operation budget. Included in that, we're about 15.2, and I think the average is 14, high 14s.
Okay, thank you.
For that peer group. So we're a little bit above average on actual spend.
Okay, thank you.
To clarify Liz's question, I think, Ms. Szilagyi, you were thinking about how we have a history of being one of the lowest per pupil spending districts and everything. So thank you for asking that question.
That is what I was trying to sort out. Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah,
we are traditionally low spending, but we're doing better. So
correct. And one thing I want to clear, I mean, there's several ways to do that low spending. I tend to like the overall operation spend comparison rather than just a Fund 10 spend comparison, because if you just look at our Fund 10, we are going to be below average per student spend. But that's not a realistic picture of what we spend, because we have a fairly high percentage of our population that have special needs that we're spending significant money on that should be part of that calculation, in my opinion. So, and again, that's one reason why I don't think, like, when we're looking at trying to find a peer group, Kimberly's not going to be a good metric for us on a peer group. They don't have a lot of diversity. They don't have a lot of special education students. They don't have a lot of homeless. They just don't have that. So they're not spending as much in those areas that we do, which is outside of Fund 10. So it does kind of skew that a little bit.
Any other questions related to Drew's current presentation? Let me scroll through. So Drew, I'm not seeing any other questions. So if you want to move on to the next stage of your presentation, go right ahead.
Okay. So the next part's pretty quick. It's just really what the budget numbers look like here as we move forward through all the funds. We looked at the operation funds. So when we separate that out, Fund 10, we're looking at just around 24 million fund balance by the end of this fiscal year. So our total revenues are going to be a little bit lower than what I was looking. Total revenues are a little bit more than 131 million. And then we have the expenditures, where we're 131 and 131.2 for expenditures, so a couple $100,000. And again, the interfund transfer, this is primarily the transfer to special education, Fund 27. So then our special projects, the Fund 21, which is really our student activity accounts, those are primarily ins and outs. They're about 1.2 million. On that, our special education, again, we've got the transfer in, and then that budget is a little under 29 million for special education. Our debt services, again, we are going to see quite an increase. We issued $65 million worth of bonds beginning of this year. So that does jump these payments up. So we're looking at just under 8 million in expenditures, but 8.5 million is what our total revenue is going to be in that area. The capital funds, we've got potentially, we've earmarked 15 million for revenue. We're still deciding whether or not we're going to take a second issue out. We may not, but better to be safe. So we have that in there, and we do have 35 million earmarked for expenses. Obviously, the vast bulk of that's coming out of our Fund 49, our projects, the safety security projects and the new middle school project. But we're also going to be paying for the bulk of the West Tennis Court and the new turf field over at North with our Fund 46. So those expenditures are also included in this. Our Fund 50, the food service, we're showing a budget of just over 3.9 million, and we are seeing a little bit of a surplus in that area right now as well.
Drew, I don't know if this is a time or not, but could you elaborate on that specific part on why that increase is there, because we needed to retain food service workers. We increased their wage. I'm guessing that's where the increase is from, largely in food service fund 50. Right?
It's a combination. We did give food service a much larger increase in wages this year, trying to get them a little bit more right-sized on where they should be. The other big jump right now, we are expecting quite a bit more revenue. We are going to be purchasing some more equipment too, as we've been able to financially come out pretty well over the last year or two. We do need to purchase some new equipment to, one, provide some different offerings that we haven't done, but also we've got some old equipment that just needs to be replaced.
Okay, awesome. I just only make the point just so the public could hear that, in order to keep food service workers and to keep our children getting fed in schools, we need to pay a decent wage that could compete with Walmart and other places that were paying certain wages. And the district made a strategic investment in that area or the board made a strategic investment with administration in that area to ensure that we could retain employees to provide that service. So I just wanted to point that out there. And thank you, Drew.
Yes, thank you. Our community service fund, Fund 80. We have that getting in here. This is going to probably be adjusted. We're still working on what portion of the new turf field the rec department's going to assist with. We got to figure out some programming within the rec department to kind of determine what we can allocate from Fund 80. So we'll probably bring that back at another time and an adjustment to this part of the budget, showing some more expenditures. We have some expenses within the turf field, and then probably some equipment and programming that we're going to do that go along with that. But some of that timing needs to depend on when that turf field actually is fully implemented for us. And then the co-op packages is just a pretty quick, easy transfer in, transfer out from other districts as well. Does anyone have any questions on any of the different funds or what their budgets were?
Drew, I'm not seeing any hands from anyone.
So that was the conclusion of the budget presentation.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right. So next we're going to move into public forum related to the budget. I don't see anyone signed up for it. So do I still read everything related to that or not?
I'm not sure we need to. We do not have anybody in the waiting room.
Yeah. So, Mr. Gunlock, Dr. Gunlock, can you just confirm as well that we have no one waiting in the waiting room to speak on the budget?
That is correct. There is nobody in the waiting room.
All right. So I'm going to forego reading the public comment guidelines, as well as the opportunity for public comments, as we are not seeing anyone that is here present to provide any public comments to us. So, all right. So then I would entertain a motion to adjourn out of the public hearing on the proposed budget for 21-22. Dr. Herzog? Dr. Herzog moves.
Second.
Seconded by Carlin. Please call the roll.
Herzog,
Aye.
Carnes,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Szilagyi,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned at 6:44.
All right, thank you. Mr. Nehans, thank you for the wonderful presentation of the budget. Again, all the graphic details makes it easier for us to understand it as well as the public, and that is much appreciated. So thank you for that. All right, so moving into the regular meeting of the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education. Are we in compliance with open meeting law notification?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you. Please call the roll.
Carnes,
Here.
Peschel,
Here.
Szilagyi,
Here.
Wright,
Here.
Carlin,
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. So we've come to a new portion in our agenda, which is called the approval of the agenda. This is an opportunity for the board to not necessarily add new items to the agenda, but to be able to move components of the agenda around in a way that we might be compassionate to staffing needs, or if there were a lot of people that were in the presence of the boardroom, to be able to take up that issue at, sooner than later. Just to be cognizant of the public's time and staffing's time and everything. There's probably other reasons why we might want to also move around the agenda as well, but those are the ones that come to the top of my head at this point. So are there any requests to move the agenda around or to keep it as is? Dr. Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. Peschel. I would like to, under the consent resolution agenda, to move items 4 and 5 to individually considered resolutions, so that staff may provide us with a short overview, not only the board, but the public, as to what those 2 items deal with. Thank you.
Sounds good. We will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other requests to move items around? All right, seeing none. Pragmatic question here. Do we need to now seek approval of the agenda through a vote? Through a
Yes,
roll
we
call
do.
vote? All right,
Yes.
thank you. Then please call the roll on the amended agenda.
Peschel,
Aye.
Szilagyi,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Carlin,
Aye.
Herzog,
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
The amended agenda is approved.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll move on to board administrative reports. I don't have a board president report at this point, so I'm just going to move on to the superintendent's report.
All right, excellent. Thank you. For our superintendent's good news report for tonight. First of all, we want to welcome back to students and staff. There were some great photos that were submitted in our first day of school outreach. So we appreciate everybody sending their pictures of the first day of school, both from staff and students. We're excited to begin the new school year with in-person learning. And based on what students were telling me, so are they. So just really excited about our opportunity to be together. So you can see some of those pictures there. And then we also have a few more pictures on our second page. So just welcome back to all of our students and staff, and I appreciate all of your efforts to what has been a very successful start to our school year. So thank you. Next, I want to say congratulations to the Oshkosh West High School varsity baseball team, who for the 5th year in a row achieved the American Baseball Coaches Association Academic Award for a cumulative grade point average of 3.0 or higher. The team had a 3.401 cumulative GPA this past spring. So congratulations to all of the boys and coaches involved in great work. Also wanted to celebrate the Oshkosh Area School District Summer Jazz Band. They had opened for the Menasha 2-day jazz festival this past weekend. Students were able to celebrate the fruits of their labor from the 2-week rehearsal camp that they had in June by entertaining the crowd as the festival got kicked off. So congratulations and a nice job to the jazz band. Wanted to recognize the Oshkosh North High School's Link crew. They're in their 6th year of operation. The group assists incoming freshmen by providing supports, answering questions, and inviting students to events to acclimate them to the new, larger school. The ratio is about 1 leader to every 4 students. And it's a great way for students to learn the new school and to become comfortable in their new environment. So congratulations and thank you to all the Link crew leaders that help support our freshmen over at Oshkosh North. So we appreciate that. Next, I wanted to say that the work done this past summer by the district's special education staff, community learning center staff, and English for speakers of other languages staff in supporting vaccinations throughout the community of Oshkosh was outstanding. And those groups have been recognized by many, including the Winnebago County Health Department. There are many success stories about how staff work to communicate and help people understand the facts and locate vaccination areas. Thank you to the great teamwork on getting the message across and being willing to help where needed over the entire summer. So thank you to all involved in that. And then lastly, a list of the meetings and events that have taken place since August 25th. As you can see, it's been a busy time of year, but I've really appreciated an opportunity to get out and meet community members and be with our staff and students in schools in person. So thanks to everybody for accommodating me in your spaces. And that concludes the good news report for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. It's great to see you getting around, and it's wonderful to see all those pictures of you with kids throughout the district. So not just you, but teachers and staff and workers. And I think we all probably feel the same way, that it's been a great feeling of excitement, not only for us as board members, but also, so much for students and their families to be back in school 5 days a week. So, thank you for leading the way.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next we are going to move on to district administrator reports, supplemental reports. First up is we have the COVID-19 update by Mr. Kamerer. And whenever you're ready.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to begin my COVID-19 board report the same way I always do, and that's summarizing the Winnebago County weekly data summary. So that data summary includes the previous 2-week period, and it looks at overall case rate in our area. And when I say our area, I mean not only our county, but the geographic area of our school district. So what we've seen really since midsummer is an upward trend in case rate. And that really held true this time around as well. So for the past 2-week period, which runs from August 18th through August 31st, the geographical area of our school district had a case rate of 324.6. So that was a slight increase from the previous week's report, which was 312.2. So again, we've seen a gradual climb of that case rate. We are still in a high category based on this most recent report. But again, these data summaries come out every Thursday, so that could change by tomorrow, depending on what the most recent data shows from this next 2-week period. When we look at students or individuals who are under the age of 18, in our geographical area, we had 47 cases. Again, this has slowly been increasing week after week. And out of those 47 cases, 35 of those individuals were OASD students. And when broken down by age groups, 11 of those individuals were under the age of 5. 13 of them were between the ages of 5 and 9. 9 of them were between the ages of 10 and 14. And 14 of them were between the ages of 15 and 17. So you really see that it's not isolated to one particular age group. It's pretty much across the board that we're seeing cases right now. Another important point is that there has been a continued rise in hospitalizations in our area. At the time this report was written, we had 87 hospitalizations in the Fox Valley region alone for COVID-19, and a vast majority of those individuals who were hospitalized were unvaccinated. And I think that's a trend that you'll hear not only in our area and our state, but across the country. And hearing some health professionals in our area talk that proportion is even more pronounced when you look at ICU units. In a lot of these ICU units, all of the individuals or a significant amount of the individuals are unvaccinated. And that's largely due to the Delta variant. We've talked about that during previous meetings, but that variant, that strain, has really led to more younger people being infected with COVID-19 and being hospitalized, but also more significant illness that goes along with that. So that's why the Oshkosh Area School District really encourages all who are eligible to be vaccinated. The good news is there are a lot of opportunities to be vaccinated in our community. So the health department continues to sponsor walk-in Wednesdays, which is at the Sunnyview Expo Center every Wednesday from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. No appointment necessary. So if you just show up, you can get vaccinated. The Fox River Mall has also been hosting vaccine clinics. And if you go to the health department website, it really varies from week to week, the hours and days of that clinic. But they do have updated schedules available on the website. And there is currently a $100 incentive program that goes along with being vaccinated. And that incentive program runs through September 19th. So if you do go out and get vaccinated, there's a way to get a $100 gift card just for going through that. In terms of COVID-19 testing, our district will be beginning our testing program next Monday, September 13th. And that program is primarily for individuals who are symptomatic or who have the potential to return early on a quarantine. So the goal is really to limit the amount of time our students and staff are out of school. The testing, at least to begin with, is going to be PCR only. We do have some antigen tests, and that may be something that we add at a later date. But right now, we don't want to stretch the capacity of our nursing staff. So we're really trying to limit the testing to those who could potentially be back in school sooner by being tested. But we are excited to have that program in place. Just as a reminder, parental consent is required prior to testing any students in our district. And along with that, there was information sent out last week on how parents can go online on the Infinite Campus portal to sign consent for testing. So those testing consents run for a full year. However, we would notify parents prior to testing their child at any point throughout the year. So even if they sign consent now, even if testing might be needed at a later date, we would reach out and have that conversation with them before going ahead and testing any students. In terms of the district dashboard, that is active as of last Thursday, September 2nd. And again, that'll be updated every Thursday from here on out. You can find the district dashboard on our website. In addition to the active cases that we have among our students and staff, we're also tracking quarantines for both groups, along with suspected transmission within our schools. So we're really trying to get a handle on whether or not we are seeing spread in our buildings or if it's all coming in from outside. As of Tuesday, September 2nd, we had 21 positive cases. Again, all of those cases, of course, were situations where individuals were exposed outside of the school setting. And out of those 21 positive cases, 17 of them were students, and they were scattered about at 10 different schools throughout the district. Along with that, we had 92 quarantines. And again, those were household contacts or students who were symptomatic without a test during that period of time. So again, that'll be updated tomorrow for anybody who's wanting to know what the most up-to-date information is from our district. That concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Go ahead, Ms. Carlin.
Hi, I think I missed. Who did you say was providing the $100 incentive to get vaccinated?
That's a good question. I didn't say who's providing it. I said it's available, but if you go to the Winnebago County Health Department website, there is a link that you can click on to find out how to get that $100 for being vaccinated.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And
That's a state program, I believe.
Yeah, it's a state program.
And so I always ask at this point of your report, what can we as board members do to support our schools and our parents and families? How can we help keep COVID at bay?
I think the biggest thing we can do is encourage vaccination for those who are eligible. Controlling the spread in our community directly relates to the number of cases that we have in our schools. So that's really important. And also, you know, our students and our staff and our families have really stepped up in terms of wearing masks in our schools. And that is one of the primary mitigation measures we have in place. So we appreciate the compliance this week. As school began, we had very few instances where students, you know, refused or were wearing masks inappropriately. So it really wasn't an issue in any of our schools, which was great to see. So just encouraging that. But also, you know, our protocols have changed a lot over the past year. And, you know, it's a big adjustment, not only for our families, but also for our staff and students. So we just ask that parents and those in the community are patient with us as we start the year and our staff work through those changes and really, you know, get up to speed in how we're going to operate, at least to begin the year.
One thing out of the report that's notable, I believe, and you just mentioned it briefly, but when I read through the whole email that we got from Winnebago County, we do have the lowest spread rate out of any of our neighboring school districts, I believe, right? We're at high and they're all at the next level up high. We're at 324.6, and I believe all the surrounding districts have a higher COVID rate, however that's calculated, or percentage.
Yeah, the case rate. And again, that looks at, yeah, you are correct. And that looks at community spread, and that tends to ebb and flow over time. So right now, some of the surrounding communities or geographic school district regions have higher case rates than we do. You know, it would be difficult to say that has anything to do with, you know, school districts at this point, or, you know, mitigation being that the 2-week period ran before the start of the school year. But that is something to continue to keep an eye on. And that is something that Dr. Davis and I are continuing to monitor.
I mean, who knows for sure, but we do know as of this moment, as of the last report, we had the lowest rate of any surrounding school districts. So
correct.
One thing that's notable out of the report for me.
Yes, I'd like it if that continues.
Dr. Herzog and then Mr. Carnes.
I want to thank Mr. Kemmer for his ongoing reports. I find these quite informative, and I hope that the public and the rest of the board do as well. So thank you, Mr. Kemmer.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Carnes.
Yeah, to Mr. Wright's point, notable that we're maybe lower compared to other districts, but we're still high. So, you know, like it's still not a good place to be. And I think what I took from, you know, Mr. Kemmer's, one of the comments you made, and it's true, is that we're reflective of our community. And what happens in our school district happens, you know, for our families, for our teachers, for our parents, is directly reflected by how our community comes together to fight through this. So thought your report was really well done. Makes a lot of sense. And, you know, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Kamer? Seeing none, thank you. Next up, we have an administrator supplemental report on referendum communications, and this will be led by Dr. Gunlock.
Good evening, everyone. I was asked to present some information on the referendum communications that we have provided as a school system. Referendum communications don't just occur before or after a referendum, they occur throughout. So we tend to divide our communications into pre-referendum, post-referendum, and kind of pre-design phase, and then progress and community updates and walkthrough until you actually have the delivery of the outcome of the referendum. In Oshkosh's history, we were able to deliver on Oak Lawn Elementary School. It went through that process. Our delivery of Learning Without Limits went through kind of a similar process, and we fully envision the latest referendum to have a similar progression. So when you look at that, the pre-referendum communications are often the most impactful because they really do set the tone for the entire project. They communicate what the project is, why the project's needed, and what the benefits are going to be. And then what we do is we carry that through. And if we do a really good job, the community sees a total connection from that moment to when we actually deliver on the promise. When we went through the referendum communications, we did dozens of community information presentations. We didn't do over 50 like we did with the previous referendum. A lot of that was because of COVID. So that really changed how we did some of these presentations. We did record our presentations via YouTube, and the presentation on the referendum was viewed 598 times. And even the FAQ video that we did that answered frequently asked questions proposed by the voters prior to voting, that was viewed 231 times. So we had some pretty good movement on that. One thing we changed this time that was a real key piece of communication was the parent support presentations. Those were housed out of all 20 of the schools, and it was divided into a couple of component parts. But those were another very strong vehicle in not only getting the information out there to our community, but giving people the opportunity to ask us questions directly. So then we got to the referendum, which thankfully was successful. Then we move into post-referendum and pre-design communications. Those are usually focused on board meeting updates because we have to go through actions with the board where architects are selected. Some of the core timelines are approved. Some of the final details are actually agreed upon. One of the big changes in that communication was the fact that we had to communicate a fairly lengthy timeline. If you'll remember when we presented this, we were all a little surprised that it was going to take 2 to 3 years to complete this. Now that we're fully into that process, I can see why it's going to take 2 to 3 years to complete this. Some of the details we are going through in terms of the design of the new middle school are quite extensive. The good news is it's turning out exceptionally well, but that is very important information. So once we move past the post-referendum pre-design phase, we then move into progress report communication. I'll show you on our website at the tail end of my discussion here, but we are posting sort of one-page monthly updates, and we've been doing that since January of 2021, and we're going to continue to do those updates every month until the projects are completed. That is sort of just a quick elevator speech on what things are happening, where are they happening, and any imagery we can post for people to actually get some views of what's going on. The hard part is that right now it's all design phase. And there's no shovels in the ground yet. We don't see big walls going up yet. That will be coming soon. So in addition to progress report communication, then we get into the real fun stuff, which is community updates and walkthroughs. And historically, here's what we've done in the past, and then I'll talk a little bit about what we have scheduled for the future. One of the things we did last year was we, at the request, because our students are pretty smart, at the request of a 4th grader at Washington Elementary, I was called over there to answer the question, how much does it cost to build a school? So I was able to not only present to the students the referendum information, which was a lot of fun for me, but boy, did they pepper me with questions. And they were really good questions. Some of the toughest ones I had. They were very interested, by the way, in what the playground was going to look like. I couldn't really share with them the total details on that one yet, but that's coming. So that was a piece of our communication plan, and we're planning on expanding that not only to the other elementary schools that will feed into the new middle school and go to the elementary school, but also those middle school students who know within a couple of years they're going to be attending the new middle school. In addition to that, we conducted the first of what is going to be many combined Merrill staff, Webster staff events. We held a breakfast for them where they came in, and I was there, and Bray Architects were there, and we had an opportunity to show them the latest and greatest images of the building. This was back on June 4th. The next big piece of communication occurred at Convocation, and many of you were there for that, where we got to see yet again some more cool designs. And this time they actually had the actual colors and materials starting to show up for the building. So that is what we've done historically to date. Where we're moving next is we're moving from our internal stakeholders, which is students and staff, to our external stakeholders, which is going to be parents and community members. The first event is actually going to be tomorrow. We are meeting with the city of Oshkosh and some of the neighbors in the Merrill area to kind of do an update and to answer questions. This is the first of several neighborhood updates. We have been working with the Washington area neighborhood on creating another update later in the fall. There's really two pieces to that update. Number one is to show them what's going on with the school and any pre-designed concepts around the new elementary school, but also to get their input to share with you as school board members on what do they think we ought to do with the Washington site when we're done using it as a school. And they were very excited that we had asked to sit down and that we were very interested in that presentation. So they're going to give us some information on that, and I'm sure we're going to get some really good ideas around that. The next thing that we're going to be doing is, as I indicated before, scheduling presentations for Washington, Merrill, and Webster elementary school students, and then Merrill and Webster middle school students as the project progresses. Another piece of communication that we're going to do, and you're going to see how these are starting to stack together, is a strategic plan update. The plan is to do that in sometime January, February timeframe for the entire community. Obviously, there's a lot of pieces to our strategic plan outside of this project, but this project really is a big piece of it. And we're going to be able to show the community the final imagery. What you saw at Convocation was probably about 85% complete. What we saw about a week after Convocation was like 95% complete. And it's amazing how much different it looks when you physically walk through the space virtually. So we're going to have that information to share as well. Then we get into construction. And once you start seeing shovels in the ground and walls going up, those are going to be the times where we're going to have to create some interesting communications. Some of the things we've toyed with is what some of the other school districts have done as they've built new schools is not only video updates, but potentially even drone footage. Because you can sometimes get into spaces you can't normally get into if we're flying over the top of it. So the objective would be to get some really solid information and video footage of these buildings as they're going up, and then intersperse them with three-dimensional imagery, because sometimes it's hard to see when you see concrete walls going up, but it's really cool if you show them, here's what the walls are looking like, and oh, by the way, here's the artist's rendition of what that space is going to look like. And then the very last piece, as the excitement builds to a crescendo, is going to be the grand opening celebration. And some of you have been involved in those in the past, when we had Oaklawn and when we opened Traeger 25-ish years ago, I think. So that's going to be a very exciting time for us to show off all the great work that has been done over the past couple of years. So that kind of, in a very short period of time, stitches together the entire journey of what we do for communications, both pre-referendum, post-referendum, and up until that moment when we actually complete the project. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'm not seeing any questions from any hands from anyone. Dr. Gunlock, I wonder if you might be able to just give a time, date, location for the community meeting that's taking place, I think tomorrow.
Yes, that is going to be tomorrow at Merrill Middle School, and it will be at 6 o'clock.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Last chance for questions for Dr. Gunlock.
One more little tidbit. This is, I referenced the website. Right on our website, we have a referendum page. If you click on that, everything I talked about is here. The referendum results, all those progress reports you can see listed here. If you had questions or you wanted to see, I'd love it if people would see the video 2 more times so I can say it's been viewed 600 times. So there's the video, and here's all the frequently asked questions. This is also the spot where we will continue to post information as we get more videos and footage and other cool things. So
I just had a quick question. What school and what grade were those students that asked you all those tough questions?
Grades 4 and 5 at Washington.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
So my one comment is you've provided a really good presentation on how communicating to the public has changed over decades of time in Oshkosh, right? I mean, because of how much technology has changed in regards to how we communicate, provides so many different levels on how we can show how things are going to be. You know, and I have found this to be the most amazing element of being able to take all those architectural drawings, put them into a digital format, and then take that digital format and then to be able to start putting in live, you know, construction feeds as to how that stuff is being done. And how it's so easy to do that now is just amazing to me. So I think it's great that we're taking those paths to informing the public of this is how you get a referendum passed. This is how you build the building, you know? So thank you for that.
The other interesting thing about that is when you see it in 3 dimensions, it really does give you a better ability to design the facility. So as we're sitting in these core planning teams with district staff, and they get a chance to literally walk through their area with the equipment is placed right where it's going to be. The furniture is exactly what's going to be there. The flooring is exactly what's going to be there. It really does help the design process. And you know, kudos to Bray. They've been exceptional to work with, and we've really appreciated their ability to show us that. So it helps us make better decisions.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure thing.
All right. Last chance for Dr. Gunlock. No? Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have a report on the 2021 referendum and summer projects update to be led by Jim Fox.
Good evening, everyone. I was asked tonight to present to the board the status of our summer projects update and the 2021 referendum report on the status of projects that occurred this summertime. Some of this will be overlap with what, the information that Dr. Gunlock had just shared. Pretty exciting stuff. So with regard to summer projects, this was a very busy summer this year, busier than usual with regard to projects. As you can see in the report, we had West Tennis Courts Reconstruction Project. Hopefully all of you have had an opportunity to drive by West. Finished a little later than usual, a couple items left, but as those pieces come together, I think it's a great facility. I think West is going to be very proud to play at that site. In addition, we had West Concrete Hardscape replacement. These are typical projects that we see every summer. West was larger than usual. That was a phase 1, a phase 2 hardscape project. pretty typical as you start to look at past reports I've given the Board of Education that we try to focus on different sites. You'll also see just below the West Hardscape, Roosevelt Elementary, Reed Elementary. Again, very typical that we choose 1 to 2 different parking lots, playgrounds, and we try to replace the asphalt and concrete. Franklin HVAC addition. Every year we're trying to better our facilities in some way relative to ventilation, whether that be air conditioning modifications. In this particular case, we had 3 areas that we found where staff were working that were not properly ventilated. So we went through the internal design, bid, and implementation of the proper HVAC so those staff could work in a well-conditioned environment. Franklin Corridor Ceilings and Lighting Project. This was an interesting project. This was something that we had done through OASD that really tied into Myron's Secure Vestibules project, where their project loosely ended in the middle of the lobby. Our project picked up at that point. We replaced all the spline ceiling, which are the 12 by 12, fully glued, fully adhered type of ceiling you see throughout Oshkosh area schools. They were in bad shape over many years of age and stains. Now that we had finished the entire roofing project, we replaced all the ceilings, we replaced the lighting, we replaced exit signage, and modified the fire suppression, fire detection system. So it gave a great look, not only the secure vestibule as you're entering the building, but now as students and staff walk those particular hallways, everything is very bright, very vibrant, very new looking. Kimball Elevator. Kimball is one of 3 different elevators that appeared on our list late in the year as being critical in that its parts were obsolescent. That's important, obviously, if that elevator were ever to fail. And the Kimball Elevator, I'm going to back up 2 steps. The Kimball Elevator is actually the stage in the front of Kimball. It's considered an elevator. When Otis Elevator looks at it, we look at it as being a pit or part of the stage, right? So when these elevators are at that age, and that was built in 1961, I believe, so when you can no longer get parts, it's critical that we get these elevator components upgraded and modernized. And that's what we did. In fact, they just finished. They did the weight test last week. They rolled 25,000 pounds onto that elevator, and they were able to raise and lower it. So it's recertified for the foreseeable future. And everything worked out well for the school year and for the kids, and as we start to roll into our fall concert series. Door replacements. I won't go through all the different doors. We talked about this briefly at Facilities and Finance. This is just a flavor of a little bit more than I would say a typical summer, but very typical nonetheless. The driver behind door replacements, in case any of you are asking or curious, is really just the condition of the door. We can have doors in very odd areas that corrode and fall apart or are a security risk, and those tend to rise higher on our list. You will see at the report that we favor no schools in particular, although arguably North High School did get the lion's share of our investment this year. That is primarily because we were investing in replacing rated doors, fire rated doors in a particular section of the school that were in terrible shape. Alberta Kimball, as I had just mentioned with regard to the elevator, phase 3. I'm really excited about Alberta Kimball. You know, this was something that we talked about 4 or 5 years ago, wanting to do something with the infrastructure at Alberta Kimball. And we're finally at the tail end of a 3-year, not just financial investment, but a lot of internal labor hours were devoted toward the Alberta Kimball. We're 1 component short that is going to show up in 2 weeks. But when that's done, I know all of you were there for the convocation, but that large screen coming down, the ability for people to walk in, lower the screen, turn on the lights, dim the house lights. You know, 3 years ago when we started, they had a light bulb that sat in the front of the Kimball Auditorium, and you kind of had to navigate through a dark auditorium to get to the front of the house. So That facility has come a long way with regard to technical infrastructure, and we can't be more proud. In about 3 weeks, that simple system is what we call it, the panel up front, to allow anybody walking into the auditorium to take full control of audio, lighting, video screen will all be fully operational. So again, I can't be more excited for the conclusion of that project. Audio system upgrades. This is something that we are actively working on. You will notice we've divided this into 2 different categories. One with buildings with new digital front ends, and the second with those that will receive this digital front end. This is actually a device and kind of projects that we're working in tandem with technology on. West High School was a recipient of a large amount of grant money that the technology department was able to basically remove a vast majority of the analog paging system and convert that to digital. Wanting to take that one step further, maintenance and technology working together, we're leaving analog systems in place, but technology is installing a digital front end, if you will. It's just a digital box, right? It's a card. But what they can do with that is now the schools that have received this digital front end can now utilize the same software that West High School uses, which is much more intuitive software for scheduling their bells and passing periods and different things. It also allows, as I had indicated, for push notifications. It allows people to use their phones for paging. Some schools also receive some different cards where they could use radios for paging. So we're always seeking different ways and working with central administration on how we can access paging, how we can push out notifications to staff and students in the event of an emergency. If they can't hear what's going on, how do we leverage all of our technology to make sure that we're giving everybody the best possible information we can in the quickest amount of time. So the buildings you'll see that are done and operational as of today are Emmeline Cook, Oakwood, Franklin, South Park, and Carl Traeger. Buildings to be updated that will complete this fiscal year, ending in July of 22, Roosevelt, Lakeside, Oak Lawn, Reed, Perry Tippler, Jefferson, and Oshkosh North. Oshkosh North, we're uncertain about. That may possibly receive a full IP upgrade. That is yet to be determined. Jefferson Elementary was some softening systems and eaves troughs. Perry Tippler, hopefully you got a chance to look at that. We put a whole new facade on Perry Tippler on mainly the north and east elevation, although we did touch all 4 sides of Perry Tippler. North High School turf field, we're just really at the initial phase of our turf field project. In fact, it's going out to RFP, should go out to RFP this week, Friday. The packet should have been submitted via Rettler to the city for the engineering department to review. That project is going to kick off somewhere late September, early October, targeting October 1st. Will continue as long as good weather holds out. With any luck, we can be working into early December and we can complete that project yet this year. That is our goal as of today. So those are the projects that we completed this summer. Any questions on those projects before I move into the referendum related projects? Okay. The referendum funded projects, probably the biggest one that took probably the lion's share of our time this summer was our secure vestibule project. That project, it was completed on time. There were, of course, some delays on certain items. I think we're all aware of supply chain problems and the economy. So there are some things that are still trickling in, but Myron did an awesome job of managing that project and their trades. We were able to get everybody in by the 20th. That was our goal. It is late, and I think it was a stressful period for a lot of people trying to get new furnishings and trying to get into a new office and trying to do all of this while registration is going on in open houses. But I think our principals and staff and students, everybody just did a great job of pulling together. So those projects finished. We'll be working through punch lists, which is really kind of an inspection that occurs, and it points out errors in installation or poor performing products or poor performing labor. Those will take place over the months of September and October, and then we should be complete at that point. Oshkosh North High School electrical renovation was a project that we had bid out just prior to summertime. That project was set to be done in December. However, there is a single component that will not arrive until likely late January or February. So that project will probably push off until possibly spring break for our complete power cutover. However, the project is on time, it is on schedule and on budget. It is likely next week, if everything continues to stay on track, that the electricians doing that project will complete their panel replacements, and they'll have gone just about as far as they can go. There will be some sporadic work at that site. We have our outside generators and transformers need to be set. They will migrate outside for a couple of weeks, but then ultimately they will move off site in October, and that particular facility, that particular project will be in a holding pattern until early next year when the remaining parts show up. Carl Traeger Middle School mechanical renovation. That project is 100% complete. That involved the complete gutting of the mechanical room, the boiler room at Carl Traeger. Updating it included new boilers, new chillers, new pumps. We updated the controls just for the boiler room. This was almost an extension from the energy efficiency project we did at Carl Traeger approximately 3 years ago. Project went very well. Was completed on time. We got the air conditioning staff. Again, I'm sure they were very, very happy. We were able to fire the air conditioning up about the same time as that terrible muggy 90s hit our district, and staff were returning. So the timing of that, I thought, worked quite well. New fire alarm installation projects are complete at Roosevelt and South Park. I think there's a couple of minor details that need to be solved yet with magnetic hold opens, but the systems are up, they're running, and they're working well. Again, this is part and parcel of our goal every year to try to do at least 1 to 2 updates to the fire alarm systems in our schools. So with the completion of these schools, I believe we are now at 7 schools that now have a modernized fire alarm system that is being monitored as well. So kind of dovetailing, oh, I'm sorry, I missed one item, the roofing projects. So we had 3 roofing projects, 2 roof sections at Franklin Elementary School, as I had mentioned before. That finishes the entire school of Franklin and their roofs. We had 2 more roof sections at West. We had E section and the section over the old room and the lunchroom. And then we had Carl Traeger. We had a roof section that was on the far west side underneath the chiller plant that we were replacing. So all of those projects were completed. Everything went well with that. With regard to planning and future projects, I think Dave Gunlock did an awesome job of kind of summarizing that. Core planning team continues to meet. That's really made up largely of principals and some exec team members and myself. Really just talking about the ins and outs of the building, some of the minutia that some of the other groups don't necessarily engage in. We're looking at budgets, we're looking at phasing the projects and how we're going to move people, how we're going to move things. So I think that's all going very well. Bray continues to host end user group meetings. Those are meetings, as the name implies, for the particular person who's going to live in that space, teach in that space, right? So we're down to probably only 3 groups, I think, and this is going to be, the meetings will conclude in the month of October, if they're even needed in October. But these were really valuable meetings throughout pre-summer, all during the summertime, to give people an opportunity to really express their concerns over that they don't have enough space or too much space, or which I didn't really hear. But as far as storage, what do their cabinets look like? What is their flooring going to look like? I mean, storage was really I think that was the one topic that we spent the most amount of time on with everybody in every group. Where's all my stuff going to go, and how is this going to look? Furniture user group meetings continue. In fact, the furniture should have arrived, I believe, today at Merrill and we'll be there until next week, Friday. It's not necessarily the furniture that we're buying, but it is representative of this particular study that was conducted by Bray, working with Julie, myself, and some of the end users as well. So if you have an opportunity, stop by Merrill Middle School, take a look at it. We were asking people to take a look at these pieces of furniture, both educators, maintenance support staff, principals, you know, try to get a sense and a feel for how can these pieces be utilized. You know, will they stand up to the wear and tear of education to children? Will they stand up to cleaning? Will they damage our floors? Everything. We really want to be able to take a look at them before we spend the amount of money that needs to be spent to be able to acquire them. So that's what's going on with regard to our furniture. Phase 2, secure entrance planning began several months ago. That's going very well. We've met with all the principals several times. I believe the footprints are pretty well established. The rooms are pretty well established. We are working on, you know, with technology, how are we going to lock doors? How are we going to release doors? You know, really the details, which is what we typically see at the tail end of a project. That particular project, as well as the new middle school, we're going to see those projects go out to bid in late November, early December. So everything, Bray has all those projects on target, and there's no reason that we see any delay in getting those out to the community for bidding. And that concludes really my presentation with regard to summer projects and referendum work. Any questions?
Go ahead, Dr. Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. Peschel. Mr. Fox, I really want to thank you for this extensive and comprehensive report tonight. It's always exciting to me as a board member and a community member in the summer to be driving around and seeing the many activities that are going on in our schools relative to upgrading and maintaining and investing in our facilities so that our students have and staff have a safe and healthy place in which to live and learn. I also was very excited to hear about the referendum projects. As we all know, we've been under the cloud of a worldwide pandemic for a year and a half. But despite that, I think we have a big thank you that we owe to the taxpayers of Oshkosh for supporting the largest referendum in district history last November, which allows us to upgrade our facilities and make sure that we're providing the best possible education for all of our students as we speak to students first as our guiding principle. So I thank you and all of the people you're working with, the cast of people behind you who have contributed to the success of these projects. And I specifically want to focus on the Alberta Kimball pit elevator. I know that this is a very important step forward in the view of all of our music educators who use that facility extensively throughout the year, as well as the outside groups. And I think it's only fitting, given what the Kimball family has contributed to Oshkosh, that we really upgrade this to a first-class facility bearing the name of Alberta Kimball. So thank you very much for all of your work and for this comprehensive overview tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Herzog. Any other comments from board members? Jim, thank you for your very wonderful and thorough presentation tonight. It was well received. So thank you.
For the opportunity. Thank you.
Any reports from board members? Go ahead, Ms. Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Peschel. The legislative committee meeting did not happen this month. So basically, I do not have a report to give because we didn't have a meeting. Unfortunately, I had a last minute obligation and we didn't have a quorum. Barb was willing to chair for me, but there weren't enough people there. However, that said, I received a call from the Lieutenant Governor, Mandela Barnes, today. or no, not today, yesterday. And I called him back and he called me back and we're playing phone tag. And I have reached out to him before to attend one of our legislative committee meetings. And I hope that's why he is calling me back. So I will keep you guys posted if he does, because I would love to host him for a day. I think he's running for Senate. And I would love to invite him to our district and have him meet our students and schools and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully by the next meeting, we will have good news and more substance to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Davis, your mic is on. Are you just waiting for me, or is there something you want to say?
Nope, just waiting.
Just waiting.
Ready.
All right. And any other board members?
Sorry, Bob, I forgot to say that I think our next meeting is the 23rd of September. That's the fourth Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so seeing none, we are going to move on to non-agenda related public forum. Give me a moment here to get my stuff together here. Right, so tonight's public forum is going to be hosted via Zoom, as we are all here via Zoom. Everyone, the public was invited to sign up on a Google Doc, and I'm going to ask for confirmation about whether we have. My view shows that we have no one signed up for public forum. Can that be confirmed, please?
Yes, that is correct. There is nobody in the waiting room.
All right, thank you. So that's for non-agenda related public forum. Seeing that we have no one signed up, we're going to move forward to agenda related public forum. And again, it's hosted through Zoom. We've provided a Google Doc for people to sign up to provide their interest, to provide comments. And I'm updating the form, see that no one has signed up for public forum related to agenda related public forum. Can that please be confirmed?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, thank you. So seeing no public comment for non-agenda related public forum or agenda related public forum, we are going to move on to the next item in our agenda. So next up is a workshop. It relates to strategic plan goals and priority goal number 2, becoming operationally efficient. Priority 2, maintain an accessible and accurate budget to build trust and clearly communicate with the stakeholders. Tonight we have Mr. Nehans to lead us in this update in regards to the strategic plan. So go ahead, Mr. Nehans.
Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay. So we are talking about creating an accessible and accurate budget to build trust and clearly communicate with stakeholders. So we really have 2 objectives within this, and it's to educate the community on how public schools are funded and the district's financial position, and to investigate providing the school board a monthly financial report to increase their understanding of the district's budget. So what we've done is create these stories, and so the software that we use, the Forecast 5, allows us to create different kind of stories that we want. So I created this budget story, and I'll click into it in a minute. But I just want to make sure that everyone's aware out there that a link to this story is already on the district webpage. If you go on the business office portion of our webpage, you can find a direct link to this story. And the goal of mine is to put several more of these stories out on the website throughout this fiscal year. So there's different ones related to different financial aspects, staffing. There's a variety of them that are related to the business office that we can build and help kind of tell our story of what we have here in Oshkosh. So I'll just kind of click this and go through just a little bit of it. I won't go through the whole thing. The board was supplied with this in the materials. Again, this is out there for the public. You can see this one's roughly 35 slides. It does kind of go pretty quickly if you want to go through it. But we kind of start off with the enrollment. It kind of goes over our trends, a 4 or 5 year trend. It shows the different demographics here and how they've changed over the years. And that's kind of, the enrollment is a big portion of our budget, is our 3 year rolling student enrollment average is really what sets our revenue limit. And that's what kind of sets our revenue for Fund 10. So there's a variety of different things in here, whether it's our enrollment, we talk about the revenues and how we've done in the past. You can see when we're looking at the portion of our strategic plan on this, where we're talking about the accuracy of the budget, you can see budget to actual on the revenue side is within a percentage point for the last 5 years. And you'll see pretty close to that on the expenditure side as well. So then there's different portions of this that kind of go into where are we looking at, where am I looking at? Aspects in here where we're either having the largest increases or whether we're not by the norms for our peer group again. All of that is.
Sorry, Drew, there's a question. Dr. Herzog got a question.
Dr. Herzog,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Would you mind making the screen larger as you had earlier on these Chromebooks? This is quite small to read, and maybe our viewers out there would appreciate it being larger. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Is that better?
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you.
So these graphs are kind of what I use internally, and similar ones to them with more detail to kind of find areas within the budget where we either need to start doing some investigating to find out why we're abnormal to our peers or out of a norm for where we are. And really, these are where we're shorter over on the budgets. The expenditures, here's where I was getting to on the accuracy again on the expenditure side. We've only had 1 year where we've had more than a 2% variance budget to actual. Typically, it's been hovering closer to 1% or a little bit under. In 2019 and 2020, we were less than 1%. This year it was 1.4% variance. So we've been creating for quite a number of years, we've been creating a fairly accurate budget, especially when you're looking at $140 million to $160 million operational budget. To be within 1% is pretty good. So then again, similar things to what we kind of saw earlier in the budget hearing. We have some more graphs and some more charts and how and why we're building and analyzing our budgets the way we are, how they're performing. So again, all of this is accessible on the website if you want to go in and kind of take a look at it. So then we kind of go through the results. We've seen surpluses primarily for the last several years. And then the under review is kind of an area that I put in here just to kind of explain and kind of go over. This is the peer group that we're in. It kind of explains what kind of spells out the different enrollments, what the percentages are, how we're similar or more similar than some other comparisons, and kind of where we're going as a district. So that's one of the tools we have. And then the other portion that we were looking at is trying to provide the school board with a little bit better or a little bit more of a financial report on a monthly basis. So I've also got this, which is a report that I have been using with the Facilities and Finance Committee and at our meetings. And so I'm going to be sharing this with the board moving forward on a monthly basis as well. So it kind of starts with an all summary, and this was from June of this year. So it would have been a full calendar fiscal year of reporting. So it's going to look a little bit different than the one that the board will see coming up, because as we move down these charts won't be as filled in. This is a chart I think is pretty valuable for the community to see as well as the board. This really shows how our revenues actually come into the district as opposed to how our expenses go out. So the blue line is the revenues, and you can see this is one reason, one of the primary reasons why we're short-term borrowing is we have all these expenditures and we're not having any revenue come in, and any significant revenue that really comes in until you're talking about January, February. We do get an aid payment that's fairly good sized in December. But really we have to go from basically the beginning of September until the beginning of December without any revenue. So that's quite a ways to go without revenue as we have all our expenses.
Were those largely COVID related, Drew?
No, this is this would be typical regardless of COVID.
Okay.
So this is typically how it goes. Now there's been discussions at the state of equalizing our aid payments and not having them be as spread out, which would drastically help us. But currently it resides where we don't get an aid payments. We get our last one in September from the prior year, and we won't get another one until early December is when we start getting significant revenue. So, and then it's back heavy. So especially larger districts, it's very common for larger districts to have to short-term borrow to bridge that gap. This kind of just illustrates for the board and for the community why that actually is. And it really isn't anything we control. It's truly set on a revenue that we don't control.
Thank you.
So then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said thank you. That's interesting. And hopefully they'll make that process smoother in the future from a statewide perspective.
Yeah, I think they will. There's been growing momentum for that and talk on it. It's just it just hasn't actually gotten through yet. But I don't think we're too far away from that happening. So as we go down the report, at various times when we start a fiscal year, you'll see these little speedometers on the top, and this is the revenue dashboard. They'll actually be at different varying levels depending on where we are and how we're tracking. And then the system will project out where they think we're going to end up based on a 5-year prior trend of how revenues and expenses have come. So then we'll be able to track how we're doing on a little bit more reliable basis than what we've had. It's much more important on the expenditure side than the revenue. The revenues are pretty fixed and pretty simple. But the tracking of the expenses is the one that I key on the most. This is the one obviously that we have more control over and is going to potentially fluctuate the most. So then these would not typically be saying they're full. They'd have a different spot on the speedometer. Then we have the regular charts of the money and where they're coming in. But the other part of this that I think is also important, not just at the committee level, but here at the board level, is how our food service fund is doing. And then also how community services fund, because those are both outside. So that will be coming for the board. So then the rest of the strategic plan is really, again, putting more stories on to the webpage. And then I'll be working with CISA 6 for the time being, and Katie when she gets back, of creating a survey of the school board to get feedback on what areas or aspects of the budget or the finances you would like more information or more education on that I can help out with. And again, start then doing targeted workshops based on the survey feedback of how I can assist people with understanding and knowing what the financial picture is and as it relates to the budget. Do we have any questions?
Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
All right, so looking at your budget story, it's very interesting to see, the story that it tells. It got me thinking about an item that we talked about a few months ago, and I didn't bring it up earlier in your budget presentation. I wasn't sure if that was the time to get into the specifics of some of this, but we talk about the facility committee has been reinstated, I believe, looking at the sports and theater and other events and venues that we need to look at for our district. One of the numbers that was shared, I think that was back in May, was that our district spends, and Ms. Carlin had talked about this earlier, we not comparing to Nina, but one of the numbers that came up was that we spend like $100 less per student on extracurricular activity. And so, I don't know if that's an opportunity to share a budget story as to, what we're doing to help, get us there. Are we trying to change that, to put more money into that, and what that would take to not even that out, but at least bridge that gap a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And I know that is one of the slides on that slide deck is talks about how we spend outside of the norm. And it does show that the co-curricular function, that 160,000 function is pretty far under the norm. And I guess what I'm hoping to do with some of these stories is over a period of time, hopefully you're going to see some of these areas that we're making corrections and we're addressing on both ends, whether we're above the norm or below the norm. Specifically to what you were talking about on that, we have taken steps this year to we are funding significantly more coaching positions. When I talked to the ADs about where they wanted some investment of funds immediately and where they thought the biggest impact was going to be for them, whether it was trying to boost up how much the sports got within their budgets or where they wanted it. They both wanted to get back to truly trying to find a plan to get back to the district fully supporting full coaching staffs at both high schools. So we've got a 2-year plan to get back to fully funded, all internal coaching, or all internal funding of our coaching staffs at the 2 high schools. So we got half of it this year. I was able to carve out. We'll get the other half of it next year. And then we'll start working on the actual athletic budgets. And we're also looking at the co-curriculars. We've looked at how they are within the co-curricular contract grids, where those need some extra funding too. So it's not just athletics that are being looked at. We are looking at the entire picture. It is going to have to be kind of a phased in plan of how we can get there. But we are doing that. That is in the works.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you just said. I mean, I'll say it, I'm more sports focused than the other co-curricular activities, but they are absolutely just as important. And I have kids that play, perform musically and do other stuff. So I think that's important to say what you did at the end there, that this isn't just about the sports. This is about all of those activities. And I think that would be that is a good story to share, how we phase that in. I think that's the right thing. We have a lot of work to do, but we need to start doing it, and it's not all going to come at once as none of these changes do. So thank you for that. That's well done.
Thank you.
If I may, I just want to say thank you, Christopher, for your comments. I agree with you on everything that you said, because I believe that what we're doing and we're trying to do is prepare kids for life. And I think that you can draw a lot from academics, and you can draw a lot from co-curricular activities and athletics. And it's been my mission ever since I began my run for school board, for us to be excelling in all those areas. So I also, want to see us spend in those areas, but then let's measure those results as well too, as far as how many kids are participating in activities and how we're actually striving to become good in all these areas. So thank you, Christopher, and thank you, Drew, for working on that. I really appreciate it.
Any other comments for Mr. Nehans? No. My only comment is that for me, this is exciting, that you're creating a mode of public education about how our school district is run financially. And it's been something that I've kind of asked for a couple of years, to create kind of more public, not a public, but more educating board members a little bit more on how it works. I love that you're creating this kind of public component to it as well, where you're creating that monthly report. So these are great enhancements, I think, to our budgeting functions for the district. So thank you for putting in that extra effort and making that happen.
You're welcome.
All right. And next up is that we have a consent resolution agenda. I have a question that I need to ask, because when earlier in the meeting we approved the agenda and made changes to the agenda. Historically, there's always been an opportunity at this point to also make changes to the agenda as well still. And I guess I'm just wondering if we want to, at some future point, have the Policy and Governance Committee look at the agenda policy again in regards to the wording related to consent resolution agenda, or if we want to provide a second opportunity in the meeting to be able to allow board members to pull items to be taken up individually. So can't really have a discussion about this at this point, but it's more of just a clarifying point here. At this point, because it's in the agenda and it's published that way, I'm going to operate as tonight there's another opportunity for board members to pull agenda items to be put into individually considered resolutions. So with that, for the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or as discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If any board member wants to discuss any item, it'll be pulled out from the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. So are there any additional items that members would like to pull from the consent agenda? No. Do we understand how this might need to be further studied at a further policy and governance meeting? All right, thank you. So with that, I would entertain a motion to move the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Carnes, seconded by Herzog. Please call the roll.
Szilagyi,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Carlin,
Aye.
Herzog,
Aye.
Carnes,
Aye.
Heschel.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Resolution carries.
All right, thank you. Now, if you all would provide me a moment, I have to get resolution number 5 up on my screen so that I can read it.
Mr. Peschel, I would read resolution 4 first.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Resolution number 4. All right. All right, resolution number 4 reads, be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the multicultural outreach navigator position as filed with the Secretary of the Board of Education. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Carlin, seconded by Szilagyi. We are open for discussion. Dr. Herzog? Go ahead.
Thank you. I had asked that both resolutions 4 and 5 be added to the individually considered resolutions to provide the administration with an opportunity to give us an executive summary of these positions at this time. Thank you.
Sure. Dr. Davis, who would you like to move forward with a presentation on this resolution?
We have Ms. Conrad is with us to provide some background for both Resolution 4 and Resolution 5 tonight.
All right, wonderful. Go ahead,
Great.
please.
Good evening, Julie Conrad, Director of Curriculum and Assessment. I'm first going to talk about resolution number 4. Resolution number 4 is asking for a title change from our Multicultural Outreach Coordinator to Multicultural Outreach Navigator. The position is budget neutral. The roles and responsibilities essentially stay the same. This is a position that has been with the Oshkosh Area School District since the 2012-2013 school year, almost continuously. But to be able to capture as many grant funding dollars as we can, we are asking that we change the title to Navigator. And so that is what that resolution is seeking. And I can explain more about the whole proposal when we go to resolution number 5.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Conrad? Seeing none, thank you. All right, any other discussion from the board on resolution number 4? All right, please call the roll.
Wright,
Aye.
Carlin,
Aye.
Herzog,
Aye.
Carnes,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Resolution carries.
All right, give me one moment, please. All right. Resolution number 5 reads, be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the addition of the revised multicultural outreach coordinator position as filed with the Secretary of Board of Education. Looking for a motion to move.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Wright, seconded by Carlin. Ms. Conrad, would you like to lead us in a discussion on this, please?
Absolutely. So this request is for an additional 1.0 full-time equivalent or FTE in staffing for the ESOL department. Since this summer or prior to the start of the school year, there have been 31 new English language learners or newcomers to the United States enrolled in the Oshkosh Area School District. 21 of those 31 students are students with refugee background. And that has caused us to take a look at our pupil services or our services to our families and our students that help us get students enrolled in school, navigate in a new school system, and provide pupil services, connections to outside agencies and resources that these families need to be successful in school. In addition to that, our current staffing has been shifting a lot of their focus to those pupil services functions rather than focusing on academics. We want our teachers and our ESOL coordinator to be focused on academics. And so we're requesting this position to be able to focus on those services to the families and students that remove barriers to learning and to make sure that they are welcome and they are navigating our new school system. In addition to that, just recently, World Relief Fox Valley, along with the Office of Refugee Resettlement, has notified us that we will be, along with Appleton, one of the resettlement sites for newcomers, specifically Afghani newcomers to the state of Wisconsin, and we want to be prepared to receive those families and those students. As you know, the ESOL department here in the Oshkosh Area School District has been award-winning and nationally recognized for our resettlement efforts and our progress that we've had with students with refugee background. We want to continue that progress. We want to continue that excellence and growth for our students and our families. And this addition of this position, which will be funded through grant services along with transfer of service from the Department of Public Instruction. We feel that this is an addition that's needed to be prepared and to be forward thinking when it comes to servicing our families.
Any questions for Ms. Conrad?
Thank you. If it's my turn.
Yes.
Thank you for that summary, Ms. Conrad. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to support this resolution because every child deserves the opportunity to succeed. And we need to make sure that we're putting the services in place so that these refugee children can be given every opportunity to succeed and thrive within our educational system. So thank you.
Dr. Herzog and then Mr. Carnes.
Thank Ms. Conrad for providing the explanation on these two resolutions. Having worked with the ESOL populations in a previous life, I understand how important it is to have staff ready when students arrive at our doorsteps. These two resolutions to me are very consistent with our guiding principle of students first, and also with our strategic plan, which promotes the notion that all students will be college, career, and community ready by the time they graduate. So I thank Ms. Conrad for her explanation, and I'm in full support of this resolution.
Mr. Carnes.
Yeah, I guess to kind of say a little bit about what's just been said. I mean, our district is focused on equity and equality. And when I hear you describe this program, I'm very happy to hear how forward thinking we are to be prepared for people that need us. And it's good to, remember sometimes that, what we're here for, what we're trying to do, and trying to help not only these families but our community at large. So I'm very thankful for this proposal, and very happy with the work that we are doing. So thank you.
Ms. Carlin?
Quick question, how can someone apply?
The position for the multicultural outreach coordinator, as it's going to be hopefully approved here in a few minutes, it will be posted on WeCan in the Oshkosh Area School District Human Resources page, and it'll be posted on WeCan for those to apply. Please keep in mind that this position is exclusively working with English learners and with our students and families with refugee background. This is not an equity or a diversity coordinator, as that has been posted out in other communities. This is specifically in service to our students and families with refugee background.
Perfect. I just thought if anybody was watching and thought that job sounded interesting, I wanted them to make sure to know where to go, which they probably already do, but thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to our website, Human Resources, and you can take a look at our postings.
Any other comments from board members? All right, I see none. I have one, and what really excites me about these positions, one, knowing of the previous position and the role that it's played in the Oshkosh Area School District and the broader Oshkosh community for almost 20 years, in regards to the level of collaboration that role has played in helping refugee or ESOL families to become more acclimated with our community. I've had the opportunity of serving on committees with several school district employees and that coordinator, the previous position, in my capacity when I used to provide housing within the community. And so it's always been a collaborative approach that builds opportunities for the families that are going to be touched through these positions. So so it's one of these things where we say it takes a village, right, to make this happen for them, and that it's not just what happens at school, it's also being able to be pivotal and being able to help them have a safe and comfortable home situation as well as they're moving into our community, which is going to be, in some regards takes several years to be finally comfortable living in communities when you're transitioning through many different paths of coming here to Oshkosh. So it's great to see that Oshkosh and the Fox Valley are still those communities where refugees come and they set up their homes and they help us build economies. Their kids grow up, they buy homes, they add so much wealth and diversity to our community that it makes our broader community stronger because they're here. So these positions are absolutely needed, and I am sure proud that I get to vote on making them happen tonight. So thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, please call the roll.
Carlin? Carlin?
Oh my gosh. Aye, sorry, my bad.
Herzog?
Aye.
Kearns?
Aye.
Peschel?
Aye.
Szilagyi?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Resolution carries.
Wonderful, thank you. Next, we are at the request for future agenda items. Any items from board members? I am seeing no requests for future agenda items. Any announcements? Mr. Carnes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, didn't really have a committee report earlier to say anything there, but it got me thinking as we were going through this meeting that tomorrow we do have an education committee meeting And one of the things that came up during the budget was how are we using our money to get the results that we want during literacy and math and other stuff. This is a committee where we have those conversations. So if anyone's interested in coming to be there, but that is stuff that we talk about there to really focus on making sure we're spending our money in the right places and getting the results that we want. The other thing I want to say, and I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm definitely looking forward to going back to in-person meetings as soon as we find that to be safe to do. I enjoy those in-person meetings. I think even with a mask on, there's a whole lot of feel you can get in a room and talking to people. So as soon as we can safely do that, I am ready for that. So thank you.
Me too.
Sure. Just if I may, go ahead, Dr. Zahn.
Announce that one of our sister institutions in the community is celebrating its 150th anniversary as a institution of higher learning and its involvement in the preparation of teachers and other educators. And we've done a lot of collaboration over the many years with the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. They are hosting a community celebration this coming Sunday from 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. The entire community is welcome, and this would be a good way to support one of our sister institutions and one of our not only main collaborators in the community, but also one of the chief sources of our teachers and principals in our school district.
All right. So no other announcements?
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Carlin, seconded by Szilagyi. Please call the roll.
Herzog,
Aye.
Carnes,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Szilagyi,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Carlin,